Here in this country, officials are investigating after election offices in 5 states received letters that contain suspicious powders. Authorities say some were found to contain trace amounts of the deadly drug fentanyl. It could be part of the rise in threats to election workers since 2020. Jeff Pegues is in Washington. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Nate. Investigators are racing to find out this morning who is behind these threats, while Georgia's Secretary of State is calling this an act of domestic terrorism.
Some people like to call fentanyl a drug, but it's actually poison.
A source familiar with the investigation tells CBS News there are more than a dozen letters being looked at, addressed to election officials in Washington State, Oregon, California, Nevada, and Georgia that may have been mailed from the Pacific Northwest. Initial tests show that some of the letters contain trace amounts of fentanyl, but more definitive tests are ongoing. One of the letters containing fentanyl was intended for an elections office in Fulton County, Georgia. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger knows firsthand how dangerous the drug is.
We lost our son 5.5 years ago due to a fentanyl overdose. We know how deadly this stuff is. So this is very, very serious, and we take it that way.
Fulton County election officials have received numerous threats since the last presidential election. It is also the county where former President Donald Trump has been indicted, along with 18 others in connection with an alleged racketeering case. Trump has pleaded not guilty. Just days after a lot of Americans across the country cast their ballots, these dangerous letters are putting a new spotlight on the threats faced by election officials.
It's been fairly consistently high threat environment since the 2020 election. Over 3 years ago now, we've seen abuse, threats, and harassment of election officials. We've seen unprecedented turnover in election offices since 2020. The stress is very, very high.
Georgia Republican election official Gabe Sterling tells CBS News that Fulton County election officials will now receive Narcan and training on how to deal with a suspicious substance if they come into contact with it. Gayle.
Very scary stuff. Thank you very much, Jeff.